For this question, we'll start with Mr. Spadia. New Jersey's average property tax bill surpassed $10,000 for the first time in 2024. One of the Democrats running for governor, Josh Gottheimer, is promising a 15% property tax cut. Can you promise us a specific cut in your first term? And if so, how will you pay for it without the sort of draconian suburban school aid cuts we've seen under Governor Phil Murphy?
Yeah. Well, there really is no funding formula. With the S2, that implies that there is some math that goes into this. Instead, we have seen arbitrary political action taken against our small towns. Now, that said, no one can promise a certain percentage of cut because you don't know what the costs are going to be when you get in. Here's what I'm going to do on day one. We're going to take over the failed city school districts. We're going to look at the $1.6 billion that is being spent in Newark City schools with 28,000 kids. 4,000 of those kids are on a list to get into a charter school. Now, we all know public school average cost $23,000. Charter school average cost $13,000. We need to have the state take over those boards of ed to push school choice. We eventually need education savings accounts, but I will directly pass the savings from Newark, Camden, Trenton, Irvington, Patterson back to the towns that have lost funding.
Jack Shirley, you're next.
First, before Mr. Spadia spoke about policy positions with regard to the children of people who are illegally, the same people that President Trump offered DACA to, he's on record as offering amnesty and a pathway to citizenship to people that are here illegally. If he were to do that as governor, I wonder if he'd offer them in-state tuition. Matt, we need a new school funding formula. The current formula, S2, is nefarious, it's arbitrary. I believe it violates the Equal Benefit Clause of our state constitution that says no community is supposed to suffer at the expense of another. Here's the argument I'll make before the Supreme Court on day one. You cannot justify to me why some districts have a cost per pupil of $37,000 per pupil when the average is $16,000 per pupil. It's no accident that the districts that have the highest cost per pupil are the ones that get the greatest amount of state aid. That is going to be fixed, and it will, under my new school funding formula.
Quickly to Bill Spadia, then
Yeah,
John Brennan, because he was a...
I heard an attack, which I'm going to ignore because it's a total lie. But what I didn't hear are details about policy. And again, what you're going to get from me, which is why I'm so happy about this format, details. We are going to talk about the executive orders that need to be written. You're not going to get anything done by waiting for the legislature or waiting for the courts. You've got to act and use the same power that Governor Murphy showed us the governor of New Jersey has during COVID. We just have to use it to restore parental rights, lower our property taxes, fix our roads, and restore integrity to government through ONNJ Doge.
Now on to John Framnick.
I'm gonna put Josh on my tax reduction team. He can serve with Houdini and other people make stuff up, right? Look, Josh keeps saying that, and I've been serving the legislature and as the leader for 10 years. He's talking nuts. What we did was practical. With Chris Christie, we put a 2% cap on local spending. Of course, we didn't do that for the state, and we should have before Phil Murphy became governor. So the real answer to Josh is, it's very interesting, you just can't do it. It's a nice soundbite, but you can't do it. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised the other Democrats haven't called him out. That's shocking to me. But if he's got a plan, I'll listen to him.
So everything that I've heard from you on this question was that you have certain reforms you want to implement, which you hope will eventually bring down property taxes. But people in the state are suffering now. Can any of you name any specific programs or policies you can enact, with or without a legislature, because you may have a Democrat legislature, to bring down property taxes, just not have them increase?
State New Jersey, which is partially funded, does that. I mean, it was kind of gimmicky. They put it in 3 years ago and said they're going to do it this year. I'm not going to vote against it. They've tried to put some money away, which cuts property taxes in half for people earning less than $500,000. So that's a quick gimmick. It doesn't work long term. What we really, and it's short term. The only way you fix it short term, increase the senior property freeze, continue to fund Stay in New Jersey, but nothing's happening overnight. Long term, we should have homesteading like they have in Florida, which means your property tax is capped until you resell that house to a family that are two working people. But short term, Houdini.
Matt, if we have a more equitable distribution of the $15 billion in state aid, we lower property taxes. And so I believe the state needs to take over the cost of special ed and then provide a formula. It's simply this. Every district gets X for every English language learner and Y for every English speaking student and Y for every English language learner. But in addition, specific to your question, I believe we should freeze property taxes once people hit age 70. I think we should make all retirement income tax-free. Let's hope the president is successful in restoring, at least in whole or in part, the SALT deduction. Let's make the first 5 years of home ownership for first-time home buyers capped at 1% of the assessed value of the home so they can get up on their feet. Those are some of the things that we can do. Never taxing someone because they did a home improvement. I think it's criminal that if you do a home improvement, you get reassessed and pay more property taxes. We'll put a moratorium on that under Governor Cettarelli.
Bill Spadia.
Well, it's very easy to stand up here and hear these guys talk about lowering taxes. Neither talk about how we actually cut spending. But Matt, to your question, I gave you a very specific way that we're going to do it by forcing school choice in our cities. But it really is beyond that, because it's interesting that Jack will tell you he's going to lower taxes, yet in the assembly he voted to increase the sales tax, he voted to increase the gas tax, he voted to increase your income tax. So I don't know how you run away from a record of tax increases, both these guys voting with the Democrats. You know, we heard it earlier, it's about winning, it is about saving New Jersey. That's what this is about. And your job as voters is to pick the strongest, most principled person up here who has the ability to actually take this and take the Democrats to task. And the only way to do it is to have a strong executive willing to take all the political hits and use the executive order to turn this around.